All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. So the band Judas Priest, they let go of one of their key players, KK Downing, a number of years ago. It seemed as though he was retiring. That seemed to be what the narrative was. And come to find out in some recent articles, according to KK Downing, that he alleges that his departure from the band was orchestrated by its other members, meaning he didn't really quit the group. Downing has been weird and regretful about being out of Priest for a long time. In 2018, when Glenn Tipton had to stop touring because of Parkinson's disease, Downing said he was shocked and stunned that Priest didn't call him to return to the band, opting instead to bring Andy Sneap on the road. Ian Hill later explained rather logically that Downing retired 7 years ago, and he made it clear at the time that he didn't want to come back. So I'm surprised that he's saying that he was surprised that he wasn't asked. So this is kind of the battle of he said. And Downing, though, has gone out and formed his own group. And so far, I think Judas Priest fans are fairly interested in KK's Priest. Now, the name of the band, I'm surprised, hasn't brought any condemnation from Judas Priest. I did read in a few places that they weren't overly thrilled about the name of the group. I'm thinking if they were really unhappy, they might throw down a lawsuit and say you can't use the word priest. But KK's Priest is coming out with an album in August, and they have at least 2 tracks out there. One called Sermons of the Sinner, which I believe is the title track to the album. And I believe they have another song. I want to say, let me see if I can think of the title, Hellfire Thunderbolt. That's the other one that's out there. 2 songs that if you're a fan of this style of music, I think you'll probably like the quality of the songwriting, the playing. This is a little out of my wheelhouse, musically speaking. But what I've done over the years, even with music that I'm not listening to on a regular basis, I still critique it and say, if you're in this genre, this is good. If you like this particular style, this is good. And I think KK's Priest might be a force to be reckoned with as far as maybe getting a lot of disaffected Judas Priest fans to be interested. Not sure. We'll have to see. This music, during the entire career, basically, of Judas Priest, has been ignored by a large portion of the radio industry, the music industry. Much like Iron Maiden, this stuff just sells, though, despite, not being heard anywhere. I mean, you're not going to hear anything on the radio by Judas Priest these days. In the old days, you might hear Living After Midnight, or You Got Another Thing Coming, maybe Turbo Lover, if I recall, that might have been on the radio for a little while. But Judas Priest, for the most part, they're not on classic rock stations. They're not on, obviously, top 40 stations. This kind of music, I know it's very niche oriented, but in the old days, again, that's why I prefer the old Judas Priest back when they were like a harder version of Deep Purple. That's kind of how I viewed Judas Priest. Harder, louder. As the years went on, though, the style changed, the genre changed. And by the way, Judas Priest was really important in changing that genre, where all these other bands, including Metallica, were influenced by the work that Judas Priest was doing at the same time. So it's interesting. KK Downing, he seems like a nice guy. They claim he retired, so they didn't ask him. He claimed that maybe these guys pushed him out and that they really didn't want him around. So it's the battle of stories and narratives. Maybe for fans of this particular, set of musicians between the current Judas Priest and KK Downing and his KK's Priest, you get more music. That might be one benefit to the breakup is you get two groups kind of duking it out. We'll see how well KK's Priest does. Will KK hit the road with his band? Not sure, but he's doing a lot of interviews out there, and the album itself comes out in August, and I think there will be a sizable group of people who will be interested in making a purchase. The date of release is August 20th. Again, Sermons of the Sinner is the name of the album, and maybe it's autobiographical. I don't know. It's an interesting genre, and it plays off of the imagery and, a theatrical element, a progressive rock element, and it's very interesting. It's not my cup of tea these days, but for fans of this style of music, it's definitely worth checking out. All right, I am done with this video proving that, yes, I can talk about things that maybe aren't my specialty every so often. I guess I should probably leave some of these topics to the experts, but every so often I chime in just because I'm kind of alone sometimes doing this, meaning that I don't hear anybody doing commentary like this, or I don't see anybody. I know there are a few people out there that do it, and they do a good job, but it's far and few compared to the music, that I grew up with. There were so many people that were always talking about this, and we had no social media. It was just in the regular media. It was in print, it was on TV, but now it's kind of like crickets out here. So I'm doing my part. Look at it that way. All right. Speaking of doing your part, how about signing up for Patreon for $1 a month, or at least subscribing to the channel? If you do Patreon, we have some musical perks over there for you. And also we can have nice, pleasant conversations about Judas Priest or something that's not Judas Priest, whatever you want to talk about. I tend to be a bit mellower in my musical taste, but hey, every so often you have to bang your head against the wall, especially in the world we're living in today.